Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari 8-bit games, some which I grew up with and some which are new to me. Today is one of the former, but I never really liked this game much as a kid because it was just a little bit too complicated for me at the time I was trying to play it. This was originally released in 1983 by Synapse Software and developed by a guy called Bob Polin, and its name is Blue Max. Now, Blue Max is a diagonally scrolling shoot-'em-up presented in oblique perspective. So much like Sega's Zaxxon. In fact, it was frequently compared to Sega's Zaxxon when it was released. But Blue Max was notable in comparison to Zaxxon for including a variety of sort of sim-like elements into the mix. So as well as sort of moving up and down and shooting and so on, you had to worry about taking off and landing and a limited amount of fuel and a limited amount of bombs and that sort of thing, and matching your altitude with targets and all that sort of thing. And it was quite complicated for young Pete, I won't lie. But nowadays I can sort of appreciate what it's doing, which is nice. So Compute magazine, writing in 1984, which is the year after it released, because reviews tended to be a bit late back then, it boldly claimed that Blue Max's pseudo 3D visuals may make standard two-dimensional eye-hand games obsolete. So referring to hand-to-eye coordination there. Now obviously this didn't quite happen because horizontally and vertically scrolling shooters are still a thing, but most people agree that the game offers a bit more gameplay depth over and above what Zaxxon offered. This was also one of the few Atari 8-bit games that got re-released in 1987 for the Atari XE game system computer console hybrid, which was a 65XE with a detachable keyboard that you could use basically as a games console. Now Blue Max is also one of the few Atari 8-bit games that I actually have an original copy of as well. So this is the original packaging here, this sort of lovely World War I inspired art on the front. Here's the back. And let's see what it says. Requires joysticks. In June of 1915 on the continent of Europe, World War I was raging. The Allies were trying to hold on to Europe, and the Royal Air Force was a key weapon thrown against the Axis powers. On the 19th of June, while flying on a reconnaissance mission, Max Chatsworth watched as an entire squadron was cut to ribbons by enemy planes. On that day, he personally shot down 7 enemy fighters. When he returned to base, he vowed to avenge the death of his comrades. The following month, he shot down 13 more enemy planes. The Axis offered the Blue Max decoration, the highest flying medal, to any pilot who would shoot down Max Chatsworth. From then on, his mates called Chatsworth the Blue Max. And now you are Blue Max of the RAF in command of a biplane fighter bomber. Your mission is to pulverize the enemy's airfields and bridges and to destroy as many enemy fighters as possible. From out of the sun, enemy planes dive and attack, machine guns chattering. From the ground, huge guns boom their deadly welcome. You smile grimly to yourself as another bird trails a smoking plume to the ground. Bombs away, and God save the king. So let's just see what we've got in here. I normally don't play this version because this is actually the cassette version, and I've got a floppy disk version of this. So if I do play Blue Max on original hardware, I tend to play the pirate copy we've got on floppy disk. But as you can see, here we are. It's a cassette. Now, as time moves on, I'm encountering more and more people who are disbelieving of the fact that video games once came on cassettes like this, but no, here you are. This came on a cassette. You put it in a tape player, you press play, and then you waited for approximately 15 to 20 minutes in most cases. So you went and did something else while your game was loading. So stop complaining about loading breaks today. You don't know how good you have it. Here's the rather simple manual. Yeah, it pretty much just sort of repeats the story in here. You are Max Chatsworth. Known by your mates as the Blue Max, you wear the very name of the medal given by the Axis powers to shoot down your plane. Now you must earn the title. To be successful, you must make a final assault on 3 specially marked targets within the city. You have only 1 aircraft and very little time to accomplish this most difficult of missions. Yeah, so, and then it goes on to tell you some of the specific things that you have to do in this. And the various sort of sim-like elements in here. So the sort of sim-like elements, we'll see a bit more of them during gameplay, but it's things like your aircraft systems can get damaged while you're flying around, and you have to bear altitude in mind, and if you're low enough you can actually strafe using your machine guns along around that strafe in the sense of shooting ground targets with machine guns rather than moving sideways, as it tends to be used today. But yeah, that is Blue Mechs. I'm looking forward to revisiting it because I have a lot more fun with this today than I did back in the day. So let's go play Blue Mechs. Okay, here we are with Blue Mechs from Synapse Software by Bob Polin. So before we start, just going to hit Option, so you can move into the Options menu here. So here you have some difficulty options: Novice, Intermediate, and Advanced. Normal control, which means you push up to go up and down to go down. Or Reverse control, which it actually says in the manual, this is how planes work, so you might want to use this. This is where you pull back to go up and push forward to go down. And Gravity, which is whether or not you have to keep pulling back on the stick to keep your plane in the air. So we'll leave it on Novice. I will put it on Reverse control because I prefer that, and we'll leave Gravity off for the minute. And let's begin. So, you start on the runway. You accelerate. Your speedometer increases despite the fact the screen is scrolling at the same speed. And then you are into the air. So, your job is to shoot down planes and bomb shit. So, pressing the fire button fires your machine guns. Pushing the fire button and pointing the nose down causes you to drop a bomb. And you'll see it on the status panel at the bottom. You've got a limited number of bombs. That's the B number. And what you're trying to do is destroy any targets that are flashing. Such as this one. There we go, one down. But at the same time, you're also trying to score as many points as you can. Now, you may notice as you move around, the status bar sometimes changes colour. And that's to show you various different things. So when you're flying very low, this means that you're low enough to sort of strafe things with your machine guns. When it gets flashing red like that, that means you're low and in danger of crashing. When it turns blue like that, it means that you're at the correct altitude to shoot down the plane that's nearby. And I think there's some others as well, but I forget what they are offhand. Okay, and then that pinging noise you just heard, and the L that's appeared on the instrument panel, means that it's time to land. So you land, and that refuels you. Up to 300, and then fills your bombs back up to 30. And then you're off on your way again. So your aim is to find all the flashing targets and destroy them. Now if you destroy all of the targets in an area and then land, you will move on to the next one. If you don't do that, when you land, you will go around the same area again. So it's looking like we're on the second area now, because the first area was that sort of river-like area, and we're now sort of on this road approaching a city. These flashing planes are really hard to hit. Yeah, I found this game really hard to deal with when I was a kid for some reason. I think it was just the fact you had to think about so many things at once. Sort of having to deal with like the altitude and your speed and all that sort of thing. Oops! And the fact you only have one life, by the way. Class 1 runway sweeper. Harsh, but probably fair. Let's try again. Yeah, so when I first played this, I was also I also wasn't super familiar with like the conventions of flying planes and so on. So if you don't know things about how a plane flies and about pulling back on the joystick to raise the nose and that sort of thing. You can die before you've even really started the game in this, because it's possible to just crash on the runway and immediately die. And because you only have one life in this, well, that's that really. And for a young lad like me, you know, that was a little bit demoralizing. So yeah, this game is often compared to Zaxxon, for obvious reasons, and also to River Raid, which is another game that was about flying a plane up a river and blowing up bridges. River Raid, of course, was presented from a fairly straightforward top-down 2D perspective rather than the oblique perspective we've got going on here. But it's still a very fondly regarded game. In fact, River Raid is one of my favourite Atari 8-bit games of all time. It bums me out that any time Activision put out a compilation of their greatest hits from this era, it's only ever the 2600 version that they put on it, because the Atari 8-bit version was so much better than the 2600 version. And I will bang that drum until I die. Until Atari 8-bit River Raid gets the respect that it deserves. Oh, you cheeky fucker. Don't do that. Rude. Very rude. I don't actually know if you can die from that. That'd be a bit harsh if you could. But oh well. Right. Looks like we didn't get all the targets first time, so we're going around the river area again. And I missed that one that time, so we're going to be going around the river area again after this. Oops! Or not. I could just crash into another plane instead. Alright, again. This game is actually followed up by a futuristic sequel called, I think it was Blue Max 2001, because, you know, 2001 is the far future. That one I don't recall being quite as well received as this one. Not 100% sure why. Maybe it just made it a bit overcomplicated or something like that, but... No, when you talk about Blue Max, this tends to be the one that people like the best. Ah, missed. Yeah, it's a slightly tricky control scheme to get on with. Because that whole pressing fire and pointing the nose down thing is a little bit awkward. But as I've mentioned on this series a number of times previously, the reason for that is that Atari joysticks only had one button. Because they use the same... No! Because they use the same joysticks as the old Atari 2600. Now, of course, on the Atari you had the option of using the keyboard, but with the way most joysticks were constructed back when this was released, it wasn't super practical to expect someone to... I think I bombed myself there. That was good, wasn't it? Kamikaze trainee, that's more like it. Yeah, because most joysticks of the era kind of demanded that you hold them with two hands, it wasn't super practical or desirable to expect a player... Ow! I'm getting cocky now. And I might finish the sentence at some point. Yeah, it wasn't super practical or desirable to expect a player to be able to press keys on the keyboard at the same time as playing an action game. Not that that stopped people in some situations. So, like, for example, if you play the excellent port of Defender that is on the Atari 8-bit, the Smart Bomb function is mapped to the spacebar on the keyboard. Which is fine, because the spacebar is quite easy to hit without having to aim for it too much. So I guess they could have taken that approach with this game. But they didn't. And I guess sort of pointing your nose down while you're dropping a bomb makes a certain amount of sense. It's sort of the dive bombing. It just means that it makes it a little bit more likely to crash into the ground if you don't do it carefully. But the answer to that, of course, is to do it more carefully. Oh, really can't hit them, can I? I'm not sure if those flashing planes count as the flashing targets that you're supposed to hit. I don't think they do. But I could be wrong. I'm actually not seeing any of the targets. Yeah, you've had a old cycle around there without any targets to hit, I don't think. Oh well, let's land and see what happens. Don't bomb me. Now, I don't really know what you're supposed to do about that, because I don't know, let's play again. Doesn't seem very fair. I presume there's a way to take off early. Maybe you can press the fire button to start off early or something like that. We actually got hit by a plane there with a bullet, and you'll see that on the status bar we've now got the F and G symbols, which means I got a fuel leak and my gun isn't working as well as it normally does. So when you land, it does repair those problems, but until then you have to deal with them. Oh, there's a target. Yeah, it's pretty much impossible to hit the planes now, with the gun being the way it is. Oh, I got hit again. So now my maneuverability is compromised. This means that I can only move very slowly. I think my bombs have been hit as well. It's like when you're in that condition, I think one more hit will finish you off. Hey, I got one. Oh, not a moment too soon. Fuel's getting perilously low as well. Alright, let's land. And I hope we don't get bombed this time. There's all the bombs, and it should repair all the systems now. There we go. Yeah, so your incentive for not getting damaged is the fact it takes a lot longer to repair yourself. And
and thus that increases the likelihood of you getting bombed or not being able to repair yourself fully before you have to take off again, so I guess that makes a certain amount of sense. Did we not get all the targets on the river? Alright, well... Oh no! Oh, you destroyed my bombs, you shit. Yeah, you really have to dive for a lot longer when your bombs are damaged. So you have to set them off a bit earlier. Oh, we got one. Oh, and here comes the runway. Let's get fixed up again. Don't hit me. Oh! Anyway, let's try advanced with gravity. Alright, so what gravity means is that your plane gradually declines in altitude automatically without you doing anything. So just every so often you need to remember to pull up slightly. And advanced, I would assume, means that you get shot at a lot more. Well, it's not feeling super more difficult yet. I think those planes are flying a bit fast today. Nice. Excuse me. Oh no! I didn't do too badly considering that. Class 4 Air Cadet. So I guess you get a better rank if you play on the harder difficulty levels. Yeah, one of the limitations you have to deal with this is the fact that a lot of games didn't allow you to move diagonally. Because so far as the Atari was concerned, reading the joystick meant reading one of 9 different values. So when you read the joystick, it returned a number based on which direction it was pointing, including not pointing any direction, including being centered. And what that meant is that diagonal directions, rather than being regarded as, say, up and left at the same time, were regarded as their own separate thing. So there are a lot of games that just didn't read diagonals because it could only read one direction from the joystick at a time. And that becomes quite apparent in this game when you try and alter your altitude and turn at the same time, because you can't do it. So you can turn, or you can move up and down, but you can't do both at the same time. Which makes things a little bit awkward, but it's something you can learn to deal with. I'm not sure what that W on the status bar means offhand. I know the P means plane, definitely. And L means land. Not sure what W means, though. Don't do it! Blowing up my hanger? How dare you? Yeah, so you can see how that strafing works when you're down. No, no! I think I hit a tree. Yeah, so we're going to say you can see how that strafing works when you're down very close to the ground. So when your status bar goes red, that means you're low enough to actually hit targets with your machine guns. So sort of the little tanks and gun emplacements you can see around the place, you can get some nice bonus points by hitting them with your guns. Because they're quite difficult to hit accurately with your bombs, with them being that small, so... Bomb myself. Last try. I'm enjoying this. Like I say, this is not a game I liked very much back in the day because I found it too difficult, but now that I kind of understand what it's going for and how to play it properly, it's a lot of fun. Regarded as a classic with good reason. Like I say, if you're at all interested in the bizarre piece of kit that was the XE game system, yeah, this was one of the games that was released for it. So the XE game system's library primarily consisted of games that came out much earlier in the Atari's lifespan, given a new lease of life through a cartridge release. There's some absolutely fantastic games amongst that lot as well. So stuff we've already seen on this series. So Necromancer got a release in that form. Don't think we've done Rescue on Fractalus yet, have we? But yeah, that was certainly one of them. This was one of them. A lot of the old Synapse stuff, in fact, generally. Because I think by the point that the XE game system came out, Synapse wasn't really sort of doing much new stuff. So I think Atari might have bought the rights to a lot of their old stuff and published them on the XE game system. Which is great because, I mean, they were old games, but they were still great games, so... And them being old certainly didn't stop them being fun to play, so... Oh, I think the W is wind. So you'll notice when the W comes up, you'll get blown sideways. Uh-oh. Just in time. Yeah, that's definitely wind. I think I might have landed a bit late there. Not sure I've got enough runway to take off again. Such is life. Oh, not quite enough. Just hit a tree on the way up. Anyway, that's Blue Max from Synapse Software. Good game. Good game. Might return to that a bit more now that I've realised that I actually quite like it. Always the way, isn't it? Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. New episodes of Atari A to Z are on Tuesdays and Atari ST A to Z on Thursdays. Check out atariatoz.wordpress.com for a full archive. Do please also check out my other projects moegamer.net, where I explore Japanese and Japanese-inspired games from yesterday and today, and videopackgames.wordpress.com, which aims to catalogue the small but well-formed library of the Philips G7000 VideoPack computer, also known as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. You can also support my work on Patreon or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.